So you've been using Word for a while now, and it's time to let you in on a secret. You can make Word work your way to make it mesh with your own personal writing style. I spend a lot of words trying to convince listeners that making small improvements here and there can add up to a significant improvement in your productivity. Now, macros, why would we talk about them? What are they? Basically, macros are little short programs that you can use to customize specific tasks in Word. Many of us know they exist, and it's one of those things that seems too technical to get started with, and what I'm doing is good enough. They seem to be for professionals because not a lot of people implement them, but they're not just for power users. In fact, you can start recording macros, and that's what this is about today, is to hopefully get you started using macros in your own work. But what can they do? First, they do a lot more than boilerplate text additions and simple style changes. It's a full-fledged programming language. Now, you don't have to get involved in that unless you want to, but basically anything Word can do, just about anything, you can write a macro to make the macro do it. So essentially, you're taking a task you may perform a lot that's tedious, or you just perform it a lot and it becomes tedious because of that, and you're wrapping that into a small little program, and you're making Word do that for you when you need it. So I'm trying to expand your horizons and hopefully convince you that you can utilize macros to write better and work faster. For example, I have macros that help me jump around my document more quickly, do common tasks like deleting sentences and paragraphs just real quickly with one keystroke. So today, hopefully, you're going to learn step by baby step how to record your first macro. And I'm not just giving you a scut macro. I'm actually giving you a macro that you can use that I've implemented more recently in my workflow, and I'm really liking it. So before we get started, we have to do something maybe a little boring, a little maybe technically intimidating. It's not a big deal, but it must be done. We have to go to the File menu and come down here to Options and choose Trust Center. Then over here on the right, there's a Trust Center Settings button. And at the top on the right side, we see Macro Settings. Now we need to be able to run macros, so we don't want to disable all macros without notification. And I suggest we can click Disable All Macros with Notification. That way, if Word does try to disable a macro, you at least get the option to know I want to run this. Now, honestly, this shouldn't matter because Word is supposed to trust macros that you record. It stores them in your normal .m file. But just in case, you can click that to make sure you don't have any problems while you're following through with me. Okay, I'm going to close this out by clicking OK there, and that brings us back to our main document. Also, I suggest testing this on a just junk document. Maybe take a regular document and save it as a macro testing document so you don't accidentally delete or mess real work up. Okay, so today you're going to learn how step by baby step to create a macro to do something that I do regularly, and that's just delete a whole paragraph with a single keystroke. Specifically, we're going to start with the quick and dirty explanation, and we'll get a little more detailed as we follow up after that. So first, we want to start our macro recording. There's actually two ways to do this. One is we can come down here to this button on the bottom of your status bar. It looks like a little Word document with a record button on it. You can click that, and it brings up a dialog box here in the middle. Now it asks us the name of our macro. We're going to call it Cut Paragraph Test. So you can call it whatever you want. I'm doing that because actually we're going to be 2 iterations of it, but this is just a test for us. Now, I would like to defer creating the keyboard shortcut to later, but that's actually going to be a separate video because it's a little bit technical to drill down in and find what you need to do after the fact. It's actually easier to just create the shortcut now. So we'll tell Word here by clicking this keyboard button there, we're going to run it with a keyboard shortcut. So here it brings up another window. Notice over here it's asking for a command. Now it already has our command listed here on the right. Then down here we have a little edit box labeled Press New Shortcut Key. So we'll click in that if it's not already selected for you, and then we'll decide what we're going to use. We'll say Control-Shift-Delete. Now mine, it tells me currently assigned to something because I actually have that to an already existing macro in my case. Yours may or may not say anything there. At that point, I need to come down here to the bottom left and click Assign. And here in the current keys combo box, you see that it has the shortcut listed, Control-Shift-Delete. Now it's ready. Whatever I record here, it's going to be run by pressing those buttons. Come over here to the Close button and close that window. Now, notice my cursor. It's got the regular arrow cursor, but it's got a little cassette recorder. That's telling me it's recording my keystrokes. I say keystrokes because most of the time you're going to use keystrokes or specific ribbon commands. The macros have a hard time recording clicks in just arbitrary places in the document, so you need to use your keyboard or specific ribbon commands, things that the macro can follow. So it's waiting for me now. What do? I want to delete a paragraph, so I need to come up with a consistent set of steps that will repeatedly delete a given paragraph. Now I'm going to use keyboard shortcuts, pretty common ones here, but I hold down Control and click up arrow, and that makes my cursor jump to the beginning of the current paragraph. Whatever paragraph my insertion point's at, it'll jump to the beginning of that one. Now I will use the keyboard shortcut to select that. That is Control-Shift down arrow will select the current paragraph. Now if you weren't familiar with that, add that to your repertoire. It's useful also. Now it has the whole thing selected. I'm going to, in this case, you could just delete it, but I'm going to cut it to the clipboard in case I wanted to use it. So I'll use Control-X to cut. And now I'm done. I want to tell Word to stop recording me. Otherwise, it'll keep recording as I work. So I can come down here to this recording button and click it. It's now a little stop icon, and I can click it and it will stop. And it'll turn back into the Word document with the record button. Now, you can also get to that same little dialog box to create your macro through the View menu on the ribbon. Come over here to the Macros setting and choose Record Macro here. And you would, again, same dialog box. Here, you could select keyboard. I've already done it, so there's no sense repeating it, so I will click Cancel. Now, this is where you have to think a little bit like a programmer. Please stick with me. I know this is going to seem, for those that don't like things that are technical, this part right here is going to seem a little tedious, but you need to do it. And if you put a little time investment in now, it will pay dividends later. So we need to test it. So let's try it. We're in the middle of this paragraph. I'm going to press Control-Shift-Delete. Boom, it's done. That's nice. So what was 3 steps is now 1 keystroke. And that's what we're after. It didn't take us that long to record it, but now we can do that same thing in 1 step. Don't have to move to the mouse or anything. Just done. Undo that. Let's try a couple other special cases. What if I'm at the end of the paragraph? So I'm going to position my cursor to the end of the paragraph and repeat. Control-Shift-Delete. Looking good. Looking good. End of the paragraph works. Now another special case is the beginning of the paragraph. Let's position the cursor at the beginning of the same paragraph and Control-Shift-Delete. Oops. Now what just happened? It deleted the paragraph above it. Why would it do that? So that's an example of why you need to test your macros so that you understand what it's doing. Test the special cases, the common cases. You don't necessarily have to be exhaustive and spend days doing it, but just make sure you know it's doing what you expect it to do. So I will undo that, and let's try to figure out what's going on. Now this is a little programmer-esque, but get used to it and you'll be able to record macros to improve a lot of little things you do. So the idea here is I'm at the beginning of the paragraph, and that's the one that messed me up. So let's go through the keyboard steps without the macro here. Let's emulate that. So Control up arrow. Oh, there we go. Control up arrow is the keystroke that went to the beginning of the paragraph from any point in the paragraph. But when I'm already at the beginning, it goes to the previous paragraph. That's why it deleted the paragraph before. That's what we don't want. So we need to come up with a way to shortcut that where it will not jump to the previous paragraph. And the easy way for that is, I'm just going to give this to you. This is the quick and dirty solution, is simply when I get ready to record it, I'm going to have to re-record it. All I do is press 1 keystroke to the right. Notice here, I'm after the T, even if I started at the beginning of the paragraph. And now when I press Control up arrow, it goes to the beginning. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Then I do the other steps exactly the same. So I will quickly go through those steps and re-record that macro, adding just that 1 step at the beginning. Move 1 character to the right. And the macro should now work for any paragraph. Let's double check that. So I'll undo that. Now let's test the special cases again. End of the paragraph, Control-Shift-Delete. That worked. Beginning of the paragraph, Control-Shift-Delete. It works now. So we have it recorded. We can now use that over and over and over again. So I can kind of hear it like, it's not worth all that trouble. And it actually is. You will save those seconds over and over and over thousands of times. So please give it a try. I'm going to try to go slow as I'm teaching you, and I've had lots of experience in teaching students that are non-technical in nature, and a lot of students that don't even want to be in my class. So please stick with me. Please try this. You will benefit from it. Now, there is a better way to do this if you actually use VBA code. In fact, it's just one line. One of these days I'll show that to you. That's not today. I don't want to get technical today, but beyond just a little steps we're doing here. Now, incidentally, there is another way to run it, just in case you have a macro that you don't have a shortcut assigned to. You can come up here to go to, again, View, Macros, and we can click on View Macros here. Now, I have a bunch of macros written, so yours probably won't look like this. You'll probably see just the one macro you've just created. You can actually also bring the same window up by tapping Alt F8. Brings that same window up. So here we have a bunch of options. We can run a particular macro. So let's go down here to our cut sentence paragraph test. Cut paragraph test. I can click run, and it will run that macro and delete that paragraph. Control Z because I don't want to do that. Bring it back up with Alt F8. I can edit the code. I can step into it. I can delete the macro, and there's an organizer there that's more so for transferring between documents. That's not us. But just know that this is here if you need to run macros that you've written that you've either forgot or didn't assign a shortcut to. So the main problem is breaking those habits. And first, I guess the main problem is deciding I can do this and trying it, because it will help you. The second problem then is breaking the habits and making it part of your workflow. At first, you're going to mess up. You're going to press the wrong thing, and you're like, what was that? Forget it. And it's going to feel like it's not worth it. But just keep trying. It will benefit you in the end. And I think you'll enjoy the little burst of productivity you get from each little shortcut that you use. You'll cut out multiple steps on thousands of times as you go through a document. And if you have any shortcuts of your own or macros that you've written that you want to share with me, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I like this stuff, and it's fun to talk about it to me. If I have time, I'll try to respond. And other than that, I'll speak with you later.